and we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
NASA says the first humans will set foot on Mars in the mid-2030s.
Elon Musk's vision for life on Mars. He's been calling it the new frontier for quite some time, but with his increased involvement in government initiatives, this idea could be becoming more real than ever. But before we get too excited about space travel, we have to ask, can our bodies, as they are right now, even handle life on another planet? With President Trump back in office for his second term, he's already made some bold moves. One of the most interesting, he brought in Elon Musk, not just for his work with SpaceX, but to lead DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency.
And we're gonna take DOGE to Mars.
Okay, I see what you did there.
While Musk's official position might not seem directly related to space, his close partnership with the president signals that his ambitions for Mars could be advancing faster than we had expected.
Elon Musk has famously said that we're going to Mars for good, to become a multi-planetary species.
Let's not forget, during his first term, Trump created the Space Force, setting the stage for missions beyond Earth. But while all this is happening politically, there's a bigger question we need to ask. Are we jumping the gun on Mars exploration? Sure, we have tech geniuses like Elon working on a solution, but our human bodies, non-robotic as they are designed for life here on Earth. And we've adapted to the conditions of this specific planet. And considering that technological advancements that allow the creation of Master Chief or Space Marines are many, many years into our future, what happens when we try to live in a place with totally different conditions today?
Because the temperature at which water boils on Mars is significantly lower than our average body temperature, the water inside of your body would just start to spontaneously boil inside of you.
Even with the help of protective suits, how could our body actually cope with life on the red planet? Spoiler alert, it's gonna be weird, bro. And honestly, pretty uncomfortable. You see, Mars is like Earth's slightly cooler, lonelier cousin who can't quite figure out that whole gravity thing yet.
So you're freezing, but your blood's boiling and you can't breathe.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Let's do it.
So, what would happen to our muscles, our bones, our overall health? I'm Dr. Chris, not your everyday ortho, and today, as part of our ongoing series on space travel and space technology, we're breaking down how your body and mind would handle life on Mars. First things first, gravity. It's like a whole new world, but weaker. Mars has about 38% of the gravity we have here on Earth. So if you weigh 150 pounds here, on Mars, you'd weigh only about 57 pounds. Sounds like a dream, right? Less weight to carry around, easier to move, maybe even a little more energy. But here's the catch. Without the constant pull of gravity, your body actually starts to deteriorate.
The early astronauts would return home for their physicals, only to find that their bone density had decreased as much as 20%. Bone is constantly changing and adapting to the stress placed upon it.
Your bones need gravity to stay strong. Without it, they don't have to bear as much weight, so your body reduces bone production in an effort to save energy and divert it to other areas that might actually need it. This leads to a loss of bone density, making them weaker and more prone to fractures. Astronauts who spend extended time in microgravity experience this same issue. Less gravity equals thinner bones, a condition called osteopenia.
Our skeletons have evolved to be able to resist most fractures. While extreme loading can fracture any bone, fragility fractures can occur with less than extreme loading.
You could end up with bones that are brittle and fragile, just waiting for the wrong move to break them. Places like your spine, knees, and wrists would be especially vulnerable. Imagine this, you're just jumping around on Mars, thinking you're in a low-gravity playground, and next thing you know, your leg snaps like a twig. Definitely not the type of low-impact workout you had in mind. As an orthopedic surgeon, this would be a huge concern. You'd need to find ways to keep these bones strong. Things like weight-bearing exercises or resistance training, even maybe artificial gravity. Exoskeletons or assistive devices might even come into play to help support astronauts' bodies and prevent long-term damage.
That puts additional pressure on an astronaut's muscles. This would help maintain health in zero-gravity situations.
But even in the event that you suffered a fracture, we would still have a problem. Many of the implants that we use to fix fractures today use titanium because it has similar properties to bone. But in a low-gravity environment like Mars, titanium and stainless steel would be much harder than bone, making it possible for them to rip out of the bone if they are used for fixation. And trust me, that is not the desired outcome. So you might be thinking, all right, if my bones might get weaker, what about my muscles? Well, without gravity pulling down on you, your muscles don't have to work as hard either, which means they're gonna start losing mass, especially the ones in your legs, lower back, and core. Sorry, Sam Sulik. That's called muscle atrophy or muscle wasting. As explained by experts at the European Space Agency, there are two other muscle-related factors besides the actual wasting that are affected.
That's the changes in metabolism and the fibers in your muscle, and the third factor is the neural control of the muscle by your brain.
Think of it like this. Muscles are like rubber bands. The more you stretch them and use them, the stronger they get. But on Mars, without gravity pulling down on you, you're not stretching them out the way you would on Earth. So they start to get weak and floppy, like that old rubber band you find while rummaging through the kitchen drawer.
I bought these rubber bands in 1980.
And that's a huge problem for anything you do, whether it's moving around or just holding your posture. The first muscles to go are the big ones, your glutes, quads, calves, and those core stabilizers. With less muscle mass, astronauts would struggle with things like balance, walking, or even standing up straight. And this isn't just about lifting weights. It's about living on Mars without your muscles working properly. If your muscles aren't keeping you stable, you're probably going to end up face first in the Martian dust. To stay functional, astronauts would need to follow a strict workout regimen. Core strengthening, resistance training, basically anything to keep your muscles from turning into mush.
You know, on Mars you wouldn't move slower. It has the same gravity as Earth.
It's false. No way. No. It's totally made up. Pure fiction. It's fiction. It's fiction. It's a total fabrication.
From an orthopedic perspective, this muscle loss isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. When your muscles weaken, your body has to work harder to keep things stable, and that can lead to all sorts of problems. Without strong muscles, your balance and coordination get thrown off. With reduced gravity, your body's sense of where it is in space, your proprioception, would be totally messed up. Walking and standing would feel completely unnatural.
You saw I'm on the floor, but it doesn't matter if I turn over and I sleep upside down. I don't have any sensation in my head that tells me that I'm upside down, so it really doesn't matter.
Astronauts would have to do rehab just to get their bodies to move normally again.
I woke up the following morning with no ability to control movement.
But there's another issue that comes with all of this. Joint health. On Mars, with reduced gravity, you'll be moving differently, and that puts extra strain on your knees, hips, and elbows. Normally, gravity helps keep your joints stable, preventing them from overextending. But with less gravity, your joints can become too loose. This is called hypermobility, where they bend further than they should, making them way more vulnerable to injury.
If our knees bent the other way, well, it would look a little different.
Your knees could actually start going the wrong way. Your hips might feel off, and your wrists could end up feeling like jelly. That's because without gravity's pressure, your joints aren't being loaded the way they're used to, which might sound like a good thing. But over time, it could actually lead to cartilage degradation and joint problems. So even though you might not have to worry about things like osteoarthritis on Mars, you could face joint pain from your lack of movement or poor posture, especially as your muscles weaken from the low gravity. To keep joints healthy, you need to stay on top of mobility exercises to keep things lubricated and functioning properly. Without daily activity like walking or running, your joints might not stay as resilient as they need to. And if you're not careful, you could end up with some serious wobbly Mars-inspired injuries.
Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. Wacky waving inflatable arm.
I hope they're sending an orthopedic surgeon with them. Maybe not me, but somebody. Now, Let's shift focus to something else that's going to feel pretty wild on Mars. Your spine. Get ready, because your back could actually grow taller, but it might not feel so great. Here's the deal. Without Earth's gravity pushing down on your spine, it could actually stretch out a little, maybe even an inch or two taller. Sounds pretty awesome, right? Oh, my short kings. You'll be the tallest one in the room. Well, at least until everyone else starts growing too.
It's crazy being a tall guy, y'all. You always gotta duck for the doors.
But this extra height, it doesn't come without a cost. Without gravity pulling you down, the vertebrae in your spine could spread apart, causing spinal elongation, a type of spinal decompression. While that might actually make you taller, it can also cause discomfort, back pain, and misalignment. Like the freaking ring dinger that just won't stop, it's like giving a constant state of decompression. Great for your height, but not so much for your spine's health. Oh, my back, man.
Then when they do certain actions, they might feel all kinds of pain because the vertebrae move too much or they're not stable.
The lack of compression can cause your spinal discs to become unstable, which could lead to aches and pains. To keep your spine from going out of whack, you'll need to focus on, again, strengthening your core. Your abdominals, lower back, obliques, and legs will all need to stay strong to maintain spinal stability. It might even be necessary to wear specially designed compressive clothing that constantly puts a force on the body so that it can resist the effects of the weakened gravity. All right, we've covered how your musculoskeletal system, your muscles, bones, and joints would handle the reduced gravity of Mars. But it's not just your muscles and bones that'll be impacted. Your cardiovascular system is in for a bit of a change too. With less gravity, your blood doesn't have to fight as hard to reach your feet. You might think, awesome, no more leg cramps after a run. But here's the catch. Since your heart doesn't need to pump as forcefully, it could actually become weaker over time. That's what happens in microgravity, like on the ISS. The heart doesn't need to work as hard to pump blood around the body, and that leads to a drop in cardiovascular fitness. The heart becomes less efficient and weaker. Over time, it's like your heart's on cruise control, taking it easy, bro. Taking it easy. But there's more. With reduced gravity, your fluids, like blood and lymph, don't pool in your legs like they do here on Earth. Instead, they collect in the upper half of your body. That means you might experience swelling in places like your face, hands, and feet. It's like walking around with that constant puffy feeling. This happens because without gravity pushing down on your body, your blood isn't being pulled to your lower extremities. That makes circulation a bit wonky and can even affect joint function and mobility over time, especially since swelling can cause discomfort and stiffness. So while your heart's getting a bit of a break, your circulatory system can throw a few curveballs. And that's not all. There's another huge challenge waiting for you on Mars.
The next thing that's going to kill you is the air itself, because there's not enough oxygen for you to breathe. Let's
talk about oxygen, something you definitely need on Mars. But here's the problem. Mars has a super thin atmosphere, less than 1% of the air pressure we have on Earth. So your lungs would have a tough time getting the oxygen they need to keep you going.
In The Martian, there was something that was called the oxygenator.
If the oxygenator breaks, I'm gonna suffocate. If the water reclaimer breaks, I'll die of thirst.
You wouldn't be able to just pop outside and take a stroll on Mars without risking suffocation. You'd need oxygen tanks or oxygen-rich suits. However, the thin atmosphere makes it much harder for your respiratory system to pull in the little oxygen that is available. Even with supplementary oxygen, it would still be harder for your lungs to take in enough oxygen. With Mars' atmosphere mostly made up of carbon dioxide and only 1% oxygen, this leads to hypoxemia, when your blood doesn't get enough oxygen, eventually causing hypoxia, where your tissues and organs, including the brain, can't function properly due to lack of oxygen.
How much is 8 minus 3?
8 minus 3 is 4.
Is it 4?
8 minus 3.
How are you feeling? Because you're already looking slightly pale in the face now.
And it's not just a short-term issue. As your body adjusts to Mars, you'll face breathing difficulties, reduced stamina, and slower recovery. Tasks like spacewalking or construction will be much harder since your muscles won't get the oxygen they need, leading to fatigue and a big drop in endurance. It'd be like trying to run a marathon while holding your breath the whole time. Sounds like fun. Not. So, without a life support system, breathing on Mars is going to require a lot more effort than you're used to. To handle this, you'd need regular aerobic exercise to keep your heart and muscles in good shape. But hey, there'd likely be specialized Mars suits that help boost oxygen flow or support circulation during physical activity. Alright, we've covered a lot about how your body will adjust to Mars. Now, let's talk about something that's often overlooked. Your skin. Mars doesn't have an ozone layer, so you're exposed to way more UV radiation than you would be here on Earth.
If UV light hits a piece of DNA, that DNA molecule can break and cause mutations in our cells that can lead to skin cancer.
Without an ozone layer, more cosmic and UV radiation gets through to the surface, putting your skin at much higher risk for burns, accelerated aging, and yes, even skin cancer. You're gonna need more than just sunscreen. Full body suits with UV blockers will be a must.
That would also be useful on the surface of Mars is to have spacesuits made of, or at least lined with, hydrogenated boron nitride nanotubes.
Plus, the thin Martian atmosphere means there's less sunlight for vitamin D production, which is critical for bone health. So while you're shielding your skin from radiation, you'll also need to consider diet and supplements to keep your bones strong. On Mars, protecting your skin isn't just about avoiding sunburn, it's about preventing serious long-term damage at both the cellular and the gross level. Alright, we've talked a lot about physical changes on Mars, but there's another side to this whole journey, one that's a lot harder to prepare for, the mental toll. We're talking about extreme isolation, distance from Earth, and no escape from the same small space. No trees, no parks, and no real change in scenery. So yeah, get ready for some serious cabin fever. But in space.
NASA and Russian NASA, which is called Roscosmos, came up with this enormous medical checklist. Psychosis is the second one on the list.
Without proper mental health support, this kind of isolation can cause some real psychological problems. We're talking stress, anxiety, depression, and even space madness. Basically, you could start losing it after being cooped up for so long. The lack of social interaction and the constant pressure to perform can really mess with your head. And that's before we even talk about the impact on your sleep. Without natural sunlight and a normal day-night cycle, your circadian rhythms are gonna be all over the place, leading to sleep issues and mood swings.
New research in Lancet Neurology studied sleep deprivation in 85 astronauts on the ISS. Earth's explorers don't get too much beauty sleep on their own. It can cause false memory formation, increased stress, decreased alertness, risk of mistakes.
Being stuck in a tiny space like that for months at a time is draining, mentally and physically. Stress, especially if it's chronic, can cause muscle tension, which can make you even more prone to injuries. And on top of that, when your mental health isn't in check, it can actually slow down physical recovery and make your body much more vulnerable to disease. It's a vicious cycle, bro. A vicious cycle.
The stress response is constantly sapping your energy. The resources used by fight or flight have to come from somewhere, and one of the places they come from is your immune system.
So keeping your head in the game on Mars is just as important as keeping your body in shape. Astronauts would have to make mental health routines a priority, whether that's through therapy, meditation, or regular exercise. Keeping both your mind and your body healthy is key to surviving the long haul on Mars. That said, space travel is a fascinating idea, and it's likely within our lifetime that humanity will venture to Mars. But as exciting as it is, we have to acknowledge the incredible challenge ahead. Our bodies would need to drastically adapt to survive and live comfortably in such a different environment. The way we've grown and developed here on Earth has shaped us for this specific planet, and a completely new environment means our physical traits and bodily systems would need to evolve or adjust. We haven't yet found scientific proof of life on other planets, but from a probability standpoint, it's reasonable to think that other planets could host life forms of their own, given the vastness of the universe. I think it would be arrogant and short-sighted to assume we've explored enough to rule it out, especially considering we've barely scratched the surface of our own oceans. And yes, I am aware of the Drake equation. Alien life might not look like what we expect. It could even be something we can't even perceive, or It could be strikingly similar to us, and we've just not found it yet.
If anyone would know about aliens on Earth, it would probably be me.
Regardless, its form will ultimately be shaped by the environment it inhabits and reflect the broader context in which it lives.
We often think of the standard gray alien, but with such a variety of planets out there, life could look very, very different to our own bipedal expectations.
So, little green men? Maybe that's a thing. But one thing's for sure. As human beings, we've got it good here on Earth.
How does this motherfucker have all this time and all this energy and all these ideas, and then people just let him do these things?
Because I'm an alien.
I'm now convinced that he's an alien.
I was like, if there was like maybe an intelligent being that's superior to people, maybe he'd just hang around with us for a little while like you've been doing, and then fix a bunch of shit.
Plus, we're in the discovery process of our body's natural abilities and adaptive capacity on this planet. I don't think we can confidently say we've reached the peak of Earthling potential just yet. Plus, Earth is still incredibly abundant and resilient, capable of sustaining life for the foreseeable future, if we treat it with care. We have a relationship with this planet that's far more than just taking from it. We need to nurture it, protect its resources, and live in balance with nature. Remember, the survival of life isn't a one-way street. We must respect the planet we have and its inhabitants before we try to conquer others. No planet, no environment will tolerate perpetual exploitation. Any hunter will tell you that.
Earth, us. Earth, us. But hang on, aren't we part of the Earth, made of the same molecules as everything else on our planet? One interconnected ecosystem.
But that's not to say we can't explore. In fact, if we learn to live more healthily here on Earth, we'd probably be better prepared for Mars and beyond. And with the journey not too distant, we can still imagine what we'll need when the time comes. The groundwork for space exploration is already being laid, even in ways we might not fully see yet. Progress is happening, step by step.
At the core of our beliefs and of our heart and our DNA, we are a migratory species. Our children and grandchildren will look up in the sky to the moon and see little dots of light out there on the lunar surface saying, we are out there.
Send a crew to Mars. They could survive the long trip. They'd be functional on the surface for some period of time. It wouldn't necessarily be easy, but it would be doable.
So, to make this journey possible, firstly, we need incredibly brave, determined, flexible, and resilient people. Those with a positive outlook who embrace challenge and discipline.
Much more looking for team players who are outstanding when it comes to health, but they also have technical competence.
Technology will also be crucial, and that's where innovation like Elon's ventures come in. Whether it's more ambitious pursuits like biospheres and terraforming, which basically means transforming it to be more like Earth.
But it's definitely a fixer-upper of a planet.
Outside of Earth.
Yes.
Earth is pretty
good.
Earth
is like easy.
Or even more immediate concerns like creating sustainable habitats and life support systems. Tech will be essential for both the long-term survival and the day-to-day needs on Mars. Astronauts will have to stay fit, with daily workouts using specialized equipment, from resistance machines to artificial gravity rooms and even electrotherapy to prevent muscle atrophy. And as I mentioned, mental health will be just as important, with routines and therapies to combat the stress and isolation. While we may not know exactly what to expect from space travel, one thing's clear. Humans can adapt, both out of necessity and by choice.
Evolution is just change, and that's a process that never stops for our species or any other.
Living on Mars will be a massive challenge for both the body and the mind, but with the right tech, creativity, and perseverance, we just might make it work. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into adaptations for space travel. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more content on space travel and technical adaptations. For more about human adaptations, be sure to check out my series on Space Marines or Master Chief. We're working towards a goal of 1 million subs, and we would love to have you with us when we get there. Don't forget to follow my gym, Human 2.0 Fitness, for free right here on YouTube, where we post content that helps you move better and prevent injury. Or its sister channel, Human at Home, where we show you how to be healthy in the space where you live. Otherwise, as always, that's been a word from Dr. Chris, not your everyday ortho, where we see one, do one, teach one.